written by Murray Stein and Henry Abramovich, with Darian Pictet, Paul Bruche, Gary Hayes, Catherine Sheppy, John Hill, and Murray Stein. Music performed by Barbara Miller. Sound design by Joaquin Rivas. Directed and produced by Luis Morris. Eranos is a production of Blue Salamandra.
Eranos. This is the host of annual conferences every summer in August. It is 1947, the 15th Eranos conference since its inception in 1933. This year's topic is Der Mensch, a German word impossible to translate simply into English. Perhaps the essential human best captures its meaning.
What if nobody comes? It nearly happened once before, in 1940. A dark night had descended over Europe, and only heaven knew when we would gather here again. But I felt in my soul that nothing can extinguish the inner light. And I asked Andreas Spicer, that lovely mathematician from Basel, to give a talk on Plato and the Trinity. Even if no one came, he would speak and I would listen. An Eranos for two. In the end, 40 people arrived. Even Jung and Emma. Eranos created a circle, a temenos, in which the work could proceed despite the evil raging all around. Is somebody there? Is that you, Richard Willem? Is that you, Willem? You promised me to teach me the secret of the golden flower. You showed me how to work the I Ching. You inspired me to think about a life's project. My mother had no time for me. But my father, Albertus, in his eyes, there was nothing I couldn't do. After my husband died, suddenly, Father brought me here to Ascona, to the Monte Verita Sanatorium, for a health cure. Just the two of us. Oh, I never wanted to leave. After Father's death, I went into seclusion. I studied the Vedas and the Upanishads, practiced yoga, meditation. I became so turned inward that I was in danger of losing my identity. I went to Zurich to see Professor Jung, and he told me I had to change my attitude, to find an extroverted calling, to be more in the world. But how? I did a series of 200 vivid, abstract, and symbolic paintings. And then I knew I would build an auditorium in the garden and hold theme conferences here. Again, I turned to Jung. And he said, make it a meeting place of East and West. Jung gave me the concept. And that great student of religion, Rudolf Otto, gave me the name. Eranos, Greek for banquet. And here, at the round table, we have a banquet of the spirit and the body, a place of encounter. Eranos is a mandala, a circle with many doors that leads to many fields of knowledge. What if nobody comes?
Olga?
Professor Jung! Oh, thank God you came.
I came to look at the stone you have placed in the garden.
It's the inscription you inspired.
Genio loci ignoto, to the unknown genius of the place. I feel its presence.
See how the two triangles carved in the stone converge? One coming down from above and the other coming up from below? And together they form a six-pointed Star of David, the unity of heaven and earth. I feel the energy from the stone. It gives me confidence.
But Olga, what are you doing out here in the dark and all alone?
I was just worrying if anyone will come this year. I was even beginning to consult the I Ching.
Enough worrying. Let's consult the book. I see you have the 3 coins. Throw them and we'll see which hexagram emerges. Our question to the I Ching will be, what is the hidden purpose of this year's Eranos gathering?
7 in the first place. 8 in the second place. 8 in the third place. 8 in the fourth place.
Yes.
7 in the fifth place. 8 in the sixth place.
Yeah. It's hexagram number 3. Jun. Difficulty at the beginning. What does Wilhelm write about this hexagram, Olga?
Willem says the hexagram Chun connotes a blade of grass pushing up against an obstacle as it sprouts out of the earth. Hence the meaning, difficulty at the beginning. The lower trigram, Chen, means arousing, and its motion is upward, and its image is thunder. The upper trigram stands for the abysmal, the dangerous, and its motion is downward, and its image is rain. And while the abysmal sinks, a thunderstorm brings release from tension, and all things breathe freely again.
And the judgment?
Times of growth are beset with difficulties. They resemble a first birth. A first birth? What do you say to that, Professor Jung?
As you well know from the birth of your twin daughters, Olga, a first birth is beset by dangers. Something new is emerging out of the womb of the unconscious. There's tension between the abysmal above and the arousing below.
Yeah.
I can feel the tension within myself.
And do you have any idea what it means?
We are recovering from a terrible period of trauma.
Yeah.
The war is over, but the recovery will be a long and difficult process. I have invited my student Erich Neumann from Tel Aviv to join us here. I haven't seen him in many years. He left Berlin in 1933 when Hitler came into power. He watched the devastation from Palestine. Not without great anguish, I'm certain. He's just now emerging from years of isolation. But be prepared. His movement is upward and thunderous, like Chen, the arousing. When you meet him, you will see what I mean.
early Monday morning, Jung and Olga are enjoying the morning light. The Eranos conference will begin later that afternoon. It is a moment of meeting between friends, a moment of looking forward, but also of looking back.
Neumann, please meet Olga Fröbe-Kaptyn, the mother of Eranos, and Aniela.
It's good to be back in Europe, but still disturbing. There are ghosts asking me why I would ever return to this place. My father was kicked to death on the streets of Berlin. I can't put that out of my mind.
And I left Berlin in 1933 and will live in exile for the rest of my life.
Aniela, what do you think? What could be the meaning of the catastrophe with the experience in this hellish war? People are saying we are now awakening from a nightmare, but nightmares are dreams, and dreams have meaning. What is the meaning of this evil we've experienced?
It's clear that we desperately need a myth of meaning, a myth that would speak of the origin and meaning of evil itself.
Yes, I too am wrestling with the problem of evil. You know, Professor, the biblical name Israel means he who wrestles with God.
Struggling with the problem of evil is wrestling with God.
All religions see the moral life as a wrestling match with evil. They believe that if humans try hard enough, they can overcome evil completely. They will be only good. But to be only good, they have to repress the shadow. But we know very well that repression does not eliminate the shadow. It gets projected onto scapegoats. In the case of the Nazis, it was projected onto gypsies and Jews, homosexuals and the handicapped. I think we need a radical new ethic for the future. One that teaches individuals to take responsibility for the shadow, and not repress it and project it. The struggle between good and evil runs through the heart of every individual.
Olga, Dr. Neumann has just summarized his new book, Depth Psychology and the New Ethic. It's brilliant. He urges us to confront the shadow within ourselves.
Yes, let me tell you what inspired me to write the New Ethics book. It was a dream. I seemed to be commissioned to kill the ape man in the deep primal hole. As I approached him, he was hanging by night, sleeping on the cross above the abyss. But his crooked, single eye was staring into the depth of this abyss. While at first it seemed I was supposed to blind him, I all of a sudden grasped his innocence, his dependence on the single eye of the Godhead, a human eye, which was experiencing the depth through him. Then I sank down opposite this single eye, jumped into the abyss, but was caught by the Godhead, which carried me on the wings of his heart. After that, the single eye opposite the ape man closed, and it opened on my forehead.
Now you too can look down into the abyss. I too am tormented by the idea that there is an abyss of evil in the archetypal self, that is to say, in God. Is God the ultimate source of the evil we suffer from in this world?
But hasn't God given us the freedom to choose between good and evil? Even between his good and evil?
Perhaps, but often we are ignorant of what we are choosing. All of us are vulnerable to mistake evil for good and choose evil while feeling noble and justified.
So, are we condemned to do evil and not know it?
Evil surrounds us. Our life becomes a battle between what we are, selfish, greedy, power-hungry creatures, and what we should be, generous, caring, open-hearted human beings. We are torn between the opposites within our nature as human beings. That is the real wrestling match.
So let's talk about evil. A man sees a little girl drowning in a river. He starts to run to save her. Then he sees the way is muddy and his new suit will get dirty. He hesitates, the girl drowns. Is that evil? A young man sees a female mental patient staring into space. He says, "This girl's life is not worth living." Pulls out a knife, slits her throat. He feels like he's done a good deed. Is that evil? Another man sees mentally ill girls standing together naked in a ravine. He says, their lives are not worth living. Takes out a machine gun, kills them all. Is that more evil than the killing of a single girl?
I sent my handicapped daughter to a home in Germany where they said the care would be better. And she was killed by the Nazis. Was I an evil mother?
It's Tuesday, day 2 of the conference. The scholar of Greek mythology, Karl Karinyi, spoke on the topic Urmensch und Mysterium, primal man and mystery.
Rabbi Baeck, so good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you, Dr. Jung.
Rabbi Baeck, our conversation in Zurich last year still echoes inside of me and has left a deep impression. I think often about how I slipped and went off the path in those confusing years before the war. I will never forget it.
Our conversation did bring back many haunting memories from my time in Theresienstadt, from those days when I was just a number, living like a horse, pulling a wagon of refuge in the mornings, life I experienced in the gray zone. After our conversation, I realized that we all live in the gray zone. But what that excruciating experience in the camp taught me most profoundly was to see every human being as precious and unique. My talk here is a direct result of our conversation. The Mishnah tells us that when humans stamp out coins, they are all identical, but when the Holy One mints souls, each one is unique. And more, God calls on each of us to choose our own true path in life.
Rabbi Baeck, I have a question.
Rabbi Baeck, this is Dr. Erich Neumann from Tel Aviv.
Yes, we know each other from Berlin.
Rabbi, you emphasize the individual. Don't we Jews also live as part of a community? To be sure, I'm not a practicing Jew, but I do feel a solidarity with my people.
Yes, for us Jews, life is first and last with our people. We live and we die together as Jews, but there are times when a lonely man of faith must speak out against injustice. For evil to take over, it only requires that good people remain silent. Olga, there is a delicate matter I would like to discuss with you. Recently, I had a letter from my friend Heinz Westman, who informed me that his Eranos lecture of 1936 was not published in the Eranos yearbook, and neither was the one of Paul Tillich. I understand that this was done at the request of your German publisher, who did not want anything in the book by Jews or critics of the Reich. Olga, did you speak up?
I was in a terrible dilemma. I felt that if I spoke up and protested, Eranos would be destroyed. And if I didn't, I would be collaborating with the Nazis. I had to choose. I remained silent. Did I go off the track? Did I?
Certainly, the power of evil is pernicious and subtle. The Church, too, was often silent or complicit in what happened during those years when evil surrounded us, just as I was myself. We all fell off the path.
Can analysis deal with guilt and the problem of evil?
Analysis can be very effective in relieving neurotic guilt. When you feel guilty, but you've done nothing to deserve it. But analysis should not attempt to overcome actual guilt. However, it can start a process of returning. It can make the guilt conscious, perhaps illuminated, and point to a tikkun, a repair, at the place where the human order was damaged.
The confrontation with guilt has a deeper purpose, to bring change in oneself, but also in the family of nations.
Concerning the shadow in oneself is essential for individuation. Our fascination with profoundly evil figures, like, for example, Dostoevsky's Raskolnikov or Shakespeare's Iago, reflects our hidden desire to know our dark side.
Evil is fascinating, I agree, Neumann, but only when seen from a safe distance, like on stage or in a novel. Up close, it's terrifying.
Yes, but don't you also believe the light of the self will ultimately overcome the darkness of shadow?
In my tradition, we believe that evil occurs when the Holy One hides his face.
Yeah, Christian theology considered evil to be the absence of good. You know, privatio boni.
Oh, Neumann, you know how much I hate the idea of evil as mere privatio boni. It obscures the reality of the power of evil. Evil lurks as an ever-present force in the world. To look away from evil or pretend it doesn't really exist as a power is dangerous. There can be no recovery from evil if you do not face it for what it is.
Yes, but the sad truth is that most evil is done by people who do not necessarily intend to do it. What happened to the Germans as a collective was that they were drawn into a mass psychology in which the sense of right and wrong was handed over to the Führer. Loyalty to the Führer became the definition of what was good. Disloyalty to him was evil.
Exactly. In these circumstances, the still small voice of the Holy One is drowned out and replaced by the masses crying out for conformity to the will of the leader. The individual disappears in the mass.
Yes. In this case, the mass psychology devours the individual. It's a man-eater. That is why I say that the collective psyche can induce evil in the masses. That is the source of evil. It is not absence. It's presence. Don't tell me that evil is nothing but privatio boni. It has presence and it's powerful. It's like a pandemic driven by a wild and deadly virus.
Wednesday evening. The conference is halfway over. Today, Professor Hillis Quispel, Jung's Dutch friend, lectured on Gnosticism, a topic that deeply resonated with Jung, which he will develop fully in his next major book, Ion. Quispel, in turn, will name ancient Gnostic documents found in the Egyptian desert in Jung's honor as the Jung Codex.
Professor Jung, you look so exhausted this morning. How are you doing?
Well, I'm 72 years old. I feel a little bit weak, yes.
I remember so well your spontaneous lecture here at Eranos. Not long after I escaped from the Nazis. It was in 1940. I took notes, and later, together, we made it into a beautiful essay. I'm thinking maybe now it's time for you to speak, more personally.
No, Aniela. I have rejected the idea of writing an autobiography already many times. Autobiography is repugnant and ridiculous to me. I would only be misunderstood.
I'm not thinking about an autobiography, but a story of your inner life. You could just talk to me. You taught me that these mysteries of the soul must have a protection, a shelter in the room where analysis takes place. We could speak like that. I would take down what you say, and then I would weave it together into a narrative of your memories, dreams, and reflections. What do you say, Professor Jung? Would you be willing to give it a try?
I resist, but on the other hand, dear Aniela, to you I can speak freely. No one is quite so intimately attuned to my thoughts and feelings as you are. I must confess that recurring strong memories of my early life have grown more frequent with the passing years. Sometimes they explode into my consciousness, and suddenly I'm taken back into some emotional scene, especially into dreams I had as a boy.
Dreams you had as a boy?
I remember one so vividly to this day.
Yes. Go on.
I must have been 3 or 4 years old. I dreamt I was in a meadow.
Yes?
And there I discover a hole in the ground. I'm curious and peer down into it. I can see stone steps descending in the darkness below. Hesitantly and with some fear, I go down the steps. At the bottom, I find a doorway made of stone with a round arch above it, the opening covered by a green curtain. I push the curtain aside and see a mysterious, dimly lit underground chamber about 10 meters long and quite high. A red carpet runs from the entrance to a platform at the far end. And on the platform there is a fabulous golden throne. Something is standing upright on the throne. It reaches almost to the ceiling. At first I think it is a tree trunk. Then I see it is made of skin and flesh. And on top of it there is something like a round head. At the crown of the head there is a single eye, gazing steadily upward. The thing does not move, but I have the feeling that it might at any moment crawl off the throne like a worm and creep toward me. By now I'm paralyzed with fear. And at that moment, I hear my mother's voice cry out loudly, "Yes, just look at him. That is the man-eater."
The man-eater? What a terrifying experience.
Yes, exactly. I remember her words clearly. I woke up sweating and in a panic. For many nights afterwards, I was afraid to go to sleep because the image of the man-eater might return.
What do you make of the dream? Was it related to a trauma?
Yes, definitely. To a traumatic experience I had around the same time. I was sitting alone as usual on the road in front of our parsonage house, playing in the sand. It was a hot summer day. From the house you could see a stretch of road winding up into a forest. Looking up from my position close to the ground, I saw someone coming out of the woods and down along the road. As he slowly drew near, I could see that it was a man with a large broad hat and wearing a black robe that reached all the way down to his feet. I was terrified. And a frightening thought shot through my mind. That is a Jesuit.
A Jesuit?
Yes. I had overheard my father speaking to a visiting pastor about the evil activities of the Jesuits in our country. I gathered that Jesuit meant something dangerous, something like a devil. Actually, I had no idea what a Jesuit was. But I was familiar with the word Jesus. From the words my mother and I prayed to Lord Jesus every night before I went to sleep. Then we would sing, "If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take." And this made me afraid of dying in the night. I thought to myself, the man coming down the road must be the Lord Jesus coming to get me. I ran wildly into the house and hid under a beam in the upmost hidden corner of the attic. I don't know how long I stayed there, but the hellish fear remained with me for days afterward and kept me in the house. And even when I began to play in the road again, the forest at the end of the road was still the object of my uneasy vigilance. Later, I realized, of course, that the black figure was a Catholic priest.
A Catholic priest? the very shadow of the Swiss Reformed Church.
Yes, the collective shadow, evil itself, was projected onto the Jesuits and the Catholics. I have tried to visit Rome many times, but I have never succeeded. On the rational level, this makes no sense. But for my unconscious, Rome is a most dangerous place. My inner child remains afraid of the Catholic priest. I've never really recovered. The priest was somehow akin to the man-eater in my mind.
Was this your first experience of evil?
Yes, Aniela. It's the first I can remember. The giant phallus was a symbol of that threatening God within the depths of the unconscious. It has blessed me with creative energy, but it has also plagued me with tasks and demands that often seemed beyond my capacity. It is a man-eater, definitely. The voice I heard, which sounded like my mother warning me of the danger, was speaking the truth. This spirit can devour you. I think of it as a second personality.
A personality number 2.
That's what I discovered at an early age. It has never left me. Cold or not cold, it is always present.
Dr. Neumann, these are images of the great goddess that I have collected over the years. She is the woman with 1,000 faces, the one who reveals herself in many forms.
Extraordinary. When I look at these images of the Paleolithic Venus, the pre-Columbian figures, the terracotta goddesses of Crete, I see the mother of us all. She who bore us at the beginning of time. The mother of thunder and rivers. The mother of trees and plants. The mother of dance and song. The mother of the rains. She is the great mother of all things.
The great mother guides me.
How did you come to know her?
Well, some years ago, when I was in Crete on a vacation, I was standing where the snake goddess was worshipped in the palace of Knossos. And I became psychologically entangled in this realm of ancient mythic figures and stories. The heat, the sun. I felt like I had a minotaur roaring inside of me. I was spinning and faint. And then I had the most powerful experience of my life. I was on an island beyond time. I was living in sacred time. And then I just dissolved. And I became the Great Mother. For a moment, I lost my identity. I became one with her.
With the Great Mother herself?
And I had another experience here at Eranos. On that small island in the lake, you can see it over there, not far away. There was once a temple dedicated to Venus. And one evening, as I was sitting in my room, I had a vision of priestesses coming this way from the island, walking in a long procession across the water and entering into Casa Gabriela. Again, I thought I was going mad. It was a vision. I made a drawing of it. See? Here it is. Another manifestation of the presence of the goddess in my life. And these experiences and symbols have become my religion. They have given me a light in the darkness, guidance and spiritual direction. I guess you could call me a pagan, Dr. Neumann. As a member of the Hebrew people, I suspect you disapprove of this type of religion. You worship a jealous patriarchal god. I'm sure he does not approve of my worship of the great goddess.
Well, whatever a jealous patriarchal god may think about the Great Mother, I am in awe of her. In my view, the Great Mother connects us to the earth, which is the foundation of all. The ancient Hebrew rituals and mitzvot do not speak to me. My Jewishness finds its expression in questioning, in studying texts, and now also in living the land of my fathers and mothers. The old ethic excluded those ancient goddesses. But today our task is to integrate the masculine and feminine, not to split them. We must recover their essential unity.
But for me, that is not easy. My early life was so completely dominated by my father. I loved him and worshipped him and his vision and energy, and he was a force, believe me. My mother, on the other side, was so small and insignificant beside him. She was always in his shadow, so when you speak of integrating masculine and feminine, I am at a loss. For me, it's one or the other. And with these experiences of the great goddess, I have gone to the opposite. Maybe you can help me to find a way to bring them together.
But you experienced the masculine and feminine in a power struggle. When there is love between them, you will find they come together.
What you say conveys so much to me, Dr. Neumann. For me, images express my deepest experience. I am creating an archive of the images I have collected, and I want to publish them in a book, a sort of comprehensive science of the soul. And you are a man of eloquent words and able to put into language what I only sense and feel intuitively in the images. Would you be willing to write an introduction for my book of images?
It would be a privilege.
And next year, Dr. Neumann, will you give a lecture here at Eranos? Will you accept the invitation?
Oh, Olga, yes. I say yes. I feel as if I finally found a home here at Eranos.
From this stimulating and synchronistic encounter with Olga, Neumann's classic study, The Great Mother, an analysis of the archetype, is conceived and published in 1951. The English translation is presented to Jung on his 80th birthday a few years later in 1955. Olga's archive would evolve and become Aras, Archive of Archetypal Symbolism, a world treasure with images from every culture. It's Friday, and Baeck has just finished his lecture, Individuum Ineffable. This is Jung's 15th visit to the Eranos conferences. He had not missed a single one since its beginning in 1933. From conversations with Rabbi Baeck and others at the Round Table, Jung's controversial masterpiece, Answer to Job, will emerge.
I found your lecture truly inspiring and healing, Rabbi Baeck.
But I was surprised by your lecture this morning. You experienced the full effect of the evil of Nazi Germany at Theresienstadt. I thought you would include the evil side of human nature in your talk.
I choose not to dwell on the problem of evil, but to live with the two sources of wonder, the starry skies above and the moral law within. For me, there is grandeur in the heavenly mystery and doing what is right here on earth.
I want to pose a question that bears on trust in God. I agree that we need a new myth for our time, but it must be honest and all-encompassing given our recent experience. My question grows out of the book of Job. This remarkable book contains an astonishing encounter between the Almighty and a human being, Job. My question is, what did Job learn when the Lord revealed himself? You will remember the dramatic scene in chapter 38. Then the Lord called out to Job from within the whirlwind.
Who speaks dark nonsense?
Stand up now like a man.
I will ask,
and you will answer.
Where were you when I founded the earth?
Speak if you know.
Who fixed the measurements of the earth? Do you know?
who laid down the world's cornerstone?
Have you been shown beyond the gates of death?
Do you know when the antelope gives birth?
Who gave the wild ass his freedom?
He who argues with God,
Let him answer.
And Job answered the Lord, and he said,
I am speechless. What can I answer?
I put my hand on my mouth.
I have said too much already.
I will speak no more.
I knew you, but only through rumor.
Now, today, my eyes have seen you.
Therefore, I will be quiet.
Comforted that I am dust.
So I ask you, what did Job see with his own eyes? Something awesome, unexpected, overwhelming? And what did he learn? Are only justice and goodness found in God? Is not God responsible for Job's incredible suffering? What did Job realize about the Almighty in this astonishing vision?
Job saw God's reality, absolutely, beyond good and evil.
Ah, Aniela, you understand.
I think we must see Job first as a father obsessed with the imaginary sins of his 10 children, constantly making sacrifices on their behalf. This sets the moral agenda. Who is guilty and who must pay the price? Later we meet Job as a father in grief, much like a Holocaust survivor today. Consolation does not come from friends, but only from above. When Job does encounter the divine presence, he experiences something far greater than he had ever imagined. And with this, he is comforted and blessed. Job discovers his place in the universe, and he lives to see his great-great-grandchildren.
What about his earlier family? Does he not remember and mourn them? Will Israel not remember and mourn their lost children forever, Rabbi Baeck?
Dr. Neumann, do you have an answer to Job?
For me, Olga, the key issue is how Job was changed by this experience. The final passage of the book gives the answer clearly. It states, Job had 3 more daughters. They were the most beautiful in the entire land. He gave them special names: Dove, Cinnamon, Child of Beauty. And in an act revolutionary for his time, he gave them equal shares of his inheritance with their brothers. Job was changed, for now he valued the feminine and the masculine equally. That is transformation.
But where is the great mother in this story? Is she just left behind or left out?
Oh, but there is Job's wife. Remember her. She expresses the great mother in despair. She has lost her children. For her, there is no consolation, no recovery, no transformation.
Nothing can replace a lost child.
Satan, the dark shadow of God, walks the earth and creates unbearable loss and destruction. We must see Job as representative of our human condition. We are all subject to the harsh brunt of irrational evil forces. We may worship the ultimate, but we must also fear it. It is ruthless. However, the divine needs human consciousness to make it more self-aware, to become conscious of its shadow. That is what the Almighty saw and learned in his encounter with the man, Job.
I agree that Job is a representative of humanity, struggling with the meaning of suffering. God is beyond our comprehension. Job encounters this great mystery as a lone individual. His vision is an encounter with the holy other as thou. This is what Job saw, and it was his life-changing experience.
A myth of meaning, if it is to address the problem of evil and heal the soul, must be grounded in the mysterium tremendum.
Yes, as in the awe-inspiring mystery, as in the book of Ezekiel, when God says, "Son of man, can these bones live?" And then, "I will make breath enter you, and you shall live. We shall be like them, reborn from the dead."
Amen.
It is Saturday evening. The Eranos conference is now concluded. All are seated one last time at the round table before each begins the journey back home. But Olga has one last question.
For our last meal together at the round table, I want to propose a question that is close to my heart. A question we have addressed many times in many ways around this table. What is heaven and what is hell? Can each of us share an image or an experience?
I like this proposal. I second it. Who will begin?
My story comes at the end of the great Indian epic. The eldest brother of the Pandavas arrives at the gates of heaven with his devoted dog. The guardian at the gate says he may enter, but not his dog. The eldest brother says the dog has been a faithful companion to him for many years, and he will not leave him behind. Later, he does enter heaven with his dog. But who does he see there but his evil cousins? He is shocked and asks, "Where are my brothers?" He is then taken below to a place of stench and suffering where he finds them. He says, "Wherever my brothers are is heaven," and decides to remain with them. So I say, heaven is where our brothers and our sisters are. Hell is where they are not.
Oh, Frau Jaffé, your touching story reminds me of a Hasidic story. A pious Jew comes to his rabbi and asks, "What is the difference between heaven and hell?" The rabbi answers with a smile, "Actually, there is no difference at all. Both above and below, people are seated at a great banquet table full of wonderful food. Only their elbows are locked, so they cannot bring the food to their mouths. The difference is that in hell, people are starving, while in heaven, each person feeds his neighbor as he in turn is fed himself. That is the difference between heaven and hell."
For me, as a depth psychologist, our feeling of being in hell or in heaven derives from the quality of the mother-infant relationship. In the arms of a loving mother, the baby feels loved and so experiences heaven. In bitter moments of abandonment, the infant experiences hell. The torments of hell, thirst, hopelessness, isolation, reflects the torments of the abandoned baby. We fear that place of despair, just as we long for the bliss in the arms of a loving mother.
As a doctor, I must say that my deepest experience of hell was to watch helplessly as my patients have suffered the torture of insanity. The endless screams and pathetic cries in a clinic will never leave me. My hell was the feeling of utter helplessness in the face of their psychic pain and terror. My experience of heaven was also in a hospital. While I was recovering from a heart attack a few years ago, I saw a vision of light where all my questions about life's mysteries were answered. I understood my life. My greatest joy has always been to understand, to know, gnosis. In that vision I got a glimpse of heaven, to know even as I have been known by the one who has guided my destiny.
Olga, you have not yet spoken.
My image of hell is one I meet again and again in a recurring dream. In my dream, I am walking down a familiar street from childhood in the city where I was born. Then suddenly I realize I don't know where I am. In front of me there is a locked door. I know I have the key, but I can't find it. I wake and I don't know where I am. It takes me some time to realize I'm in my own bed. For me, hell is being locked out, alone.
And what of heaven, Olga? Tell us of heaven.
Heaven? Heaven is being home here with you all.
It is again Sunday evening, and Jung and Olga are sitting at the round table.
Olga, do you know who first used the word Eranos?
No? Who?
The great goddess of wisdom.
Athene?
Exactly.
Tell me, where?
In the first book of Homer's Odyssey, that great epic of homecoming. But now it's time for...
You to leave.
Yes, to leave. But I'm worried about leaving you here and so alone at Eranos.
But I won't be alone.
Oh, who is staying with you? Is it Aniela?
No, it's not Aniela.
Not Aniela?
Here, read the inscription on this ring. What does it say?
It says, love never fails, in Greek.
This is what I learned from you. If you're true to it, love will never fail.
True love remains, always true.
Finally, I am ready. I can put this ring on my finger.
Olga, you look so happy.
Yes, I am more than happy. As long as I live, Eranos, the unknown spirit of this place, and I will never be separated.
And she never was. She created and recreated the inspired gatherings at Eranos year after year until she died in 1962. The spirit of Eranos lives on today, in us, beside a round table, by a lake, under the trees, waiting for the conversation to continue.